What if I told you that your tears don't just fall into silence? They echo across realms you cannot see. There's a moment that comes in the stillness of loss, when the world around you continues spinning, but your own heart stands still. You find yourself in the quiet, tucked away from everyone else, where no one sees the sob you try to stifle, the quiver in your chest, the aching in your throat. It's here, in that hollow space, that a question floats up from somewhere deeper than your thoughts. Do they know I'm hurting? Do they see me cry? It's not a question of logic. It's not something born in your brain. This comes from somewhere far more ancient, your soul. It's the same part of you that once felt their presence like a warm current beside you. The same part that still searches for them in every shadow and whisper. You may have smiled today, you may have functioned, but you know that doesn't mean you're okay. Grief isn't always loud. Often, it comes in waves so quiet that even you don't notice the tide until you're already drowning in it. The world asks you to move on, to get back to life, to be strong. And so you do what you've been taught. Hide your mourning behind a mask of strength. But when the doors close and no one's watching, the truth returns like a tide at night. And in that unspoken place, you wonder, where are they now? And do they know I'm still breaking without them? There's something so painfully intimate about crying in solitude. It's like peeling away every barrier, every distraction, and letting your soul speak its truth. And what it speaks is not just pain, it's longing. Not just sadness, it's love. You're not just missing them, you're reaching for them. That's what the tears really are. Each one is a message, a vibration, a signal that says, I still love you, I still need you, I still feel you, even if you're gone. And maybe that's the hardest part, feeling like your love is unanswered. Like your pain is invisible to the one person you need the most. But the question isn't really, can they see? The deeper question, the one beneath the surface, is, has love truly been lost, or does it still move between us in ways we don't yet understand? You're not just asking with your mind, you're asking with your whole being. Because your soul remembers something your mind has forgotten, that we are more than bodies, more than thoughts, more than this moment. You are more than flesh. You are vibration, energy, consciousness. And so were they, and so are they. So the tears you shed in silence aren't unnoticed. They are felt in ways you cannot yet perceive. Your grief isn't a private collapse, it's an energetic release. And on the level where love never dies, something or someone is listening. This question, do they see me cry, isn't about eyesight. It's about connection. It's the soul's way of asking, are we still tethered? Am I still held, somewhere beyond this grief? You may not realize it yet, but asking this is the first step in remembering what's true. That love doesn't end just because a heartbeat does. If it did, you wouldn't still be crying. You wouldn't still be aching. Your tears are proof that love lives on, and love that's strong is never one-sided. You weren't meant to carry this weight in silence. Your soul knows this, even when your mind tries to bury it. That's why this question keeps surfacing, no matter how far down you push it. It's not curiosity, it's instinct. It's the deeper knowing within you that life must be more than flesh and bone, that the story between you and them couldn't possibly end with a final breath. And maybe you've felt it, that strange, inexplicable moment. When a song comes on at the exact right second, when a sudden calm blankets your grief, like a presence brushing against your sorrow. When a memory pops into your head so vividly that it feels like a visitation, you might call it coincidence or imagination. But what if it's not? What if those moments are answers? What if your tears are not falling into nothingness, but into a field of energy that connects every soul, living and departed? What if your sorrow is felt, not by someone watching from above, but someone feeling you from beyond? What if this question, do they see me cry, is answered every time you feel that presence when you least expect it? You've been taught to grieve in silence, to believe that death is a wall. But what if it's a veil? And what if, when your soul cries out in the darkness, theirs is the first to hear it? What if the bond you had, the love you shared, didn't disappear? It simply changed its language. Maybe now, instead of hearing your voice, they feel your vibration. Instead of seeing your face, they sense your essence. Maybe the tears you hide aren't hidden at all. This grief you carry, it's sacred, not something to be buried, or timed, or measured. It's a testament to the love you gave. And that love doesn't evaporate, it transforms. It stretches between dimensions. It builds bridges where logic sees only emptiness. And somewhere, beyond time and form, the one you're grieving knows. So ask the question. Let your heart scream it into the silence. Do you see me? Do you feel me? Can you hear me crying? And then, be still. Let your soul speak. Let the unseen become felt. Because sometimes, the answers we seek aren't spoken, they're remembered. You are not grieving alone. You never were, and you never will be. It happens quietly, often without warning. One moment, there is breath. The next, there is stillness. And in that stillness, something sacred unfolds. What was once tethered to the body is suddenly free, weightless, and unbound. The soul slips gently out, like mist rising from a calm lake at dawn. There is no violence in the departure, no abrupt tearing away. It's more like remembering something long forgotten, like waking up from a dream you didn't know you were dreaming. For those who remain, it may feel like an ending. But for the one who crosses over, it's a beginning, a return. The very instant the soul separates from the physical form, awareness expands. Imagine shedding a heavy coat you didn't even realize you were wearing. The sensations become clearer, sharper, but not in the way you're used to. It's not about seeing with eyes or hearing with ears anymore. It's something else entirely, a kind of knowing that fills every part of your being, a knowing that you are not gone, that you are still you, but more. There's often a soft pause, a quiet moment of realization. You don't feel panic, there is no fear. Instead, you feel presence, stillness, an overwhelming peace that silences every thought and fills you with a recognition so deep, so familiar, you wonder how you ever forgot. You're not floating in some distant place. You're here, but not quite here, close enough to feel the warmth of those you love, yet removed from the pain of the body that once held you. For many, the first impression is not light or angels or tunnels, though those can come later. The first impression is clarity. Everything feels clear. You're no longer tangled in the constant noise of the mind, no longer weighed down by the fears, doubts, and distractions that once blurred your vision. You see the room you just left. You see your body lying there, but you do not feel fear. You do not scream or panic or grieve. You observe, you understand, you remember. There's a sudden realization that you've done this before, not in this life, but in others. That death is not new, that this transition is part of an eternal rhythm, one that your soul has known for eons. And as that memory returns, something opens within you, not just knowledge, but truth, a recognition that you are part of something infinite. Not outside of it, not beneath it, but within it, always. You may begin to notice a light, not outside of you, but emanating from within, a soft radiance that grows brighter as you let go of attachments, expectations, and identity. This light isn't new either. It's who you've always been, you just couldn't see it before. You begin to sense others not in bodies, but as fields of love, of intelligence, of presence. Some feel familiar, as if you've known them beyond time. Some may even be loved ones who crossed over before you, coming to greet you not with words, but with deep, embracing recognition. Communication in this realm is not spoken, it's felt, it's instant. Thought and feeling blend into one seamless language. There is no misunderstanding here, no secrets, no need to explain yourself. You are known fully and completely, and you know in return. That kind of transparency, that kind of intimacy, is not frightening, it is liberating. Time begins to lose its meaning. There are no clocks here. Moments stretch and contract based on your awareness. You might review your life not as a series of events, but as vibrations, as echoes of love, fear, choices made, paths taken, or not. You don't judge yourself in this review. You see, you witness who you were, not from a place of shame or pride, but from a place of expansion, of compassion. You understand what mattered and what didn't. You see how each action, each word, each emotion rippled outward into the lives of others. And then, you feel it, the pull, not downward or upward, but inward, a draw toward the next place, the next layer of becoming. Some might call it the light, or the soul realm, or the return to source, but labels don't quite fit here. What you feel is home. Not a place you go to, but a state of being you remember. It's the remembrance that you were never separate to begin with, that you were always held, always seen, always known. The physical world still exists to you, but it no longer grips you. You can sense those you left behind, their sorrow, their longing, their questions. And yet, you see them differently now, not just as individuals, but as souls, radiant and sacred, still playing out their roles in a dream they believe is real. You ache with love for them, but you do not suffer. Your love is no longer entangled in fear or possessiveness. It is pure, it is vast. There's a gentle understanding that some may call out to you, that some will weep and wonder where you've gone, and in those moments, you draw near, not with footsteps, but with energy, with attention, with presence. Your awareness is no longer bound by space, so you move through intention alone. And when someone you love cries for you not from fear, but from love, that energy reaches you, like a soft wind stirring the stillness. You feel it, not as sorrow, but as light. This is what it means to cross over. Not to vanish, but to awaken. Not to end, but to remember. To remember that you are not the body, the story, the identity you once carried. You are awareness. You are presence. You are the breath behind the breath, the light behind the eyes, the stillness behind the heartbeat. You've stepped out of the illusion of finality and into the truth of eternity. And even now, even in this expanded state, you remain connected to every life you touched, to every soul you loved, to every tear they cry. You do not watch them from afar like a ghost in the shadows. You are with them closer than breath, quieter than thought, whispering without words. I'm still here, I see you, I remember, I never left. What if I told you that in the spiritual world, your emotions are not just felt, they are seen, not through eyes, but through energy. When someone you love passes from this life, it can feel like all connection has been severed. The physical world no longer offers you their voice, their touch, their smile. You're left with memories, photographs, and the ache of longing. And yet, deep inside, something in you refuses to let go. You still talk to them, you still feel them, you still cry for them. But how is it possible for a connection to remain when the body is no longer here? The answer lies in a truth most people never realize. The soul doesn't operate by physical laws. In the realm of spirit, emotion is not a side effect, it is the language. You've been taught to think of emotion as invisible, as something that happens inside your body, a private experience. But in the spirit world, nothing is hidden, everything radiates. What you feel is what you emit, and your emotions, especially grief, carry a frequency so distinct, so powerful, that it ripples beyond this physical plane. Imagine sending out a pulse with every heartbeat, a frequency that transcends space and time. That is how your loved one senses you now. In this dimension, you rely on sight to observe the world around you. You use ears to hear, hands to touch, voices to communicate. But these are tools of the body, not of the soul. The spirit doesn't have eyes that see in the way yours do. It doesn't need them. Instead, it perceives through vibration, through resonance. The energy of your emotions becomes the bridge between your world and theirs. When you feel something deeply, especially love, longing, or sorrow, it radiates from you like light through a prism. And in the spirit world, that light is felt more vividly than you can imagine. This is not metaphor, it's the architecture of consciousness itself. On the other side, souls are not bound by form. They exist in a field of expanded awareness, one where thoughts are felt, emotions are heard, and energy is the most articulate form of communication. You don't have to speak aloud, you don't have to pray perfectly, or light a candle in a certain way. The soul who loves you doesn't need ceremony. They feel you the moment your heart calls out to them. That ache in your chest, that breath you hold when their memory passes through your mind, That tear you release at night when no one is watching, these are not empty gestures. They are signals. They are messages. They are real. Imagine your emotion as a color in a pitch-black room. It fills the space. It moves. It radiates. It dances. If someone were standing in that room, they wouldn't need to see your face to know how you feel. They would simply sense the color, the frequency, the vibration. This is how perception works beyond the veil. When you cry for someone who has crossed over, you are not merely remembering them, you are reaching them. And they perceive it not with eyes, but with essence. Grief emits a unique frequency, not because it is negative, but because it is powerful. And when it is rooted in love, it creates a resonance that cannot be ignored. This is why so many people experience strange moments during mourning, a sudden chill in the room, a dream that feels more real than waking life, a flickering light, or a song that plays at the perfect moment. You are not imagining these things, you are witnessing the interaction between your emotional field and theirs. In this expanded awareness, there is no need for words. Thoughts are energy, emotion is intention. Just as a tuning fork causes another to vibrate in harmony, your emotions vibrate into the spiritual realm, and if the soul you love is attuned to your energy, which it is, they respond. This is not superstition, it is spiritual physics. You might wonder, but what if my emotions are dark? What if I'm lost in sadness or anger or guilt? Won't that push them away? And the answer is more beautiful than you expect. In the spirit world, perception is wrapped in compassion. The soul sees not just the sadness, but the love behind it. They feel your grief, not as burden, but as proof that what you shared was real. That it mattered. They don't recoil from your sorrow. They understand it. They move toward it not because it is pain, but because it is you. Still, there's something to understand. Just as joy and gratitude create a light, uplifting current, emotions like desperation or clinging can create a heavier one. Not wrong, not shameful, just different in frequency. And in this energetic exchange, intention matters. When you grieve with openness, with reverence, with love, even if you're heartbroken, that energy becomes a form of connection. But when grief turns into refusal, when it locks itself into bitterness or refusal to heal, the vibration changes. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the emotional current becomes denser, harder to navigate. Even so, the soul that loves you feels no judgment, only understanding. This is why it's important to honor your emotions without collapsing into them, to feel without drowning, because your emotional energy doesn't stay with you alone. It travels. It reaches them, and they, in their expanded awareness, are sensitive to every nuance of it. They perceive the truth behind the tears. They don't just feel the pain, they recognize the story behind it. They understand what you're trying to say without needing you to say it. In that space beyond life, love becomes pure frequency. Intention is everything. That is why some people report feeling their loved one most clearly when they speak from the heart, when they cry openly, when they share a memory aloud, when they whisper a message into the dark. In those moments, the vibration is clear, undistorted. It's like a beacon calling out through the fog, and the soul answers. Your emotions are sacred. They are not something to be dismissed or minimized. In the spirit world, they are a form of language more honest than any spoken word. And when you feel deeply, you are not alone in that experience. You are being heard in a way that goes far beyond human comprehension. So, the next time you cry, know that you're not crying into emptiness. Your emotions are traveling, they are reaching, they are being received. The soul you miss so deeply doesn't see you with eyes, they see you with presence, with knowing, with an awareness that moves through all barriers. And they are listening. Always. There are certain connections in life that never truly break. They may stretch, they may fall silent, but they do not end. And when it comes to the love you shared with someone who has crossed over, that bond is not only unbroken, it's eternal. It exists beyond time, beyond form, beyond the veil of what we call life and death. You may feel as if they've gone somewhere unreachable, as if the final breath was the final word, but it wasn't. Love does not obey the same laws as the physical world. Love is not diminished by death, it is transformed. You still think of them, don't you? In the quiet spaces, when no one is around, their name echoes in your heart. Sometimes it rises out of nowhere, triggered by a scent, a sound, a memory. You wonder if they know, if they feel it, if they're aware that you're still holding them, even if only in thought. The answer is yes. Because what you are feeling isn't just memory, it's communion, it's contact. You're reaching across realms without realizing it. In the spiritual dimension, love is the purest language. It's not distorted by words or tainted by misunderstanding. It vibrates with absolute clarity. When you think of someone who has passed with genuine love, not fear, not regret, but love, you are transmitting energy that is unmistakable in the spirit world. It's not a whisper, it's a radiant flare. It pierces through density, it moves faster than any signal or sound, and it's received. You see, the connection you had with them didn't dissolve with the body. It expanded. While they no longer exist in the form you recognize, skin, voice, presence, their essence is still deeply connected to yours, especially if your love for them remains alive. That emotion is not just a private experience. It becomes a call, a pulse sent out into the greater energetic web that links all souls. Grief, in its truest form, is an expression of undying love, and in the spiritual realm, love is magnetic. It draws souls closer, it bridges the space between dimensions. You might wonder why, if they're still connected to you, you can't hear them or see them clearly. But that's only because the senses you're using to perceive haven't been tuned to the frequency of spirit. Just as a radio can only catch a certain station when it's dialed in, your heart must be still, receptive, open. That's why sometimes, in the middle of a deep cry, you suddenly feel calm. Or, you sense warmth around you, a gentle presence. That's not your imagination. That's resonance. That's your love calling out, and being answered. In those moments, you may feel as if someone is standing behind you, or as if the room has shifted ever so slightly. It's subtle, never intrusive. Spirit doesn't force its way in. It waits for the opening, for the emotional window, and grief, as heavy as it can be, often becomes that window. When your heart cracks open, something moves through, something from beyond this realm. That's the paradox of pain. It hurts, because it came from love, but that same love becomes the signal that keeps your souls linked, no matter how far apart you may seem. Think of it this way. In life, when you deeply love someone, you know their energy. You can sense their mood from across a room. You pick up on their silence, on the shifts in their expression. You know them not just by what they say, but by what they emanate. That energetic imprint doesn't end with death. In fact, it becomes even clearer from the other side. Because now, they are no longer masked by the confusion of ego or the distraction of time. They see you through the lens of pure essence, and they respond to the love you send with an awareness you can't yet comprehend. So many people worry that the connection is lost. They say, "I feel nothing," or "I can't hear them," and they assume that silence equals absence. But that's not the truth. The connection isn't gone, it's shifted. It's like moving from a conversation over the phone to communicating through music. Different channel, same presence. You just have to learn to listen with the heart instead of the ears. To feel instead of expect. To trust instead of force. And here's something most people don't realize. Your loved one doesn't need you to stop grieving in order to move on. They simply need your grief to evolve. Grief that is rooted in love that honors, remembers, and respects is sacred. It doesn't tether them, it blesses them. But grief that becomes despair, that refuses to release the idea of what once was that kind of grief, can create resistance. Not because it traps them, but because it dims your own light. And when your light dims, it becomes harder for them to reach you. They want you to live, not forget, not move on as if nothing happened, but live in a way that includes them, even if differently. You may talk to them aloud, write them letters, light a candle. These rituals matter, not because the spirit needs them, but because you do. They help your energy focus. They open the line between you, and when you speak from the heart, not from desperation, but from reverence, that message is felt instantly and responded to. This eternal bond is not a metaphor, it's a real, energetic structure. It exists in the fabric of your being. And if you quiet your mind long enough, if you soften your grip on expectations, you will feel it. Not in a thunderous way, but in the stillness, in that subtle hum that lets you know someone is near. You'll begin to sense their presence in patterns, in music, in the way your body suddenly relaxes for no reason. They walk with you, not behind, not above, but beside, in the moments you least expect, in the places you often overlook. It's true, the form has changed. You can't hold their hand or hear their laugh in the same way, but what's taken form is not lost. It's translated into light, into memory, into presence. And presence is not lesser than form. In many ways, it's more. Because now, they are no longer limited. They are not bound to one space, one time. They are with you when you need them most, not always when you want, but always when the heart truly calls. So the next time you feel that ache, that sudden longing that arrives like a wave crashing from nowhere, pause. Don't run from it. Step into it. That ache is the thread of your bond, pulling, reminding, calling. And if you let it, it will guide you to that space where they still are. Not lost, not gone, just transformed. What if I told you that when you cry for them, they don't feel sadness the way you do, but they do feel something deeper, something purer? When someone you love passes, it can feel as though they've taken a piece of your heart with them. You mourn not just the person, but the connection, the laughter, the shared glances, the simple presence that once filled the air. And in that mourning, there's a question that aches just as much as the absence itself. Do they know how much I'm hurting? Can they feel my pain? It's easy to imagine that if they could, they'd be hurting too. That your grief might cause them sorrow, or worse, weigh them down somehow. But the truth is more complex, and far more beautiful than you've been told. In the spirit realm, perception is no longer filtered through the dense lens of the human body. The emotional storms, you feel the raw sadness, the heaviness in your chest, the ache that seems to live in your bones. These are experiences rooted in a body that no longer limits them. Once a soul transitions beyond the physical, it no longer suffers in the way you understand suffering. It does not cry with tears, it does not break under the weight of sorrow, but that doesn't mean it is unaware. It doesn't mean it is indifferent. In fact, it means the opposite. A soul in spirit feels everything more, not less, just differently. When you grieve, you emit a frequency, a vibration. Your pain becomes energy, not chaotic or random, but rich with meaning. And while that energy can't be measured by the instruments of this world, it can be felt by those who exist beyond it. Your loved one does not feel pain the way you do. They do not suffer. But they do perceive your grief in the most intimate and direct way, not as agony, but as love in motion. Try to imagine this. Your sadness is not a wound to them. It is a wave, a signal that says, "You mattered to me. You still matter. I haven't stopped loving you, even now." And from where they are, with their expanded awareness and infinite compassion, they receive that signal not as suffering, but as evidence of the bond you still share. They recognize the love beneath the tears. They sense the truth that your mind often forgets, that love cannot be broken by death. It can only change form. Your loved one no longer interprets emotions the way they once did while in the body. In the physical world, pain often feels like chaos, unpredictable, overwhelming, sharp. It feels like drowning in something you can't describe, let alone escape. But for the soul, emotion is understood through the lens of divine clarity. They don't just feel that you're hurting. They understand why. They see the full picture, the meaning behind the sorrow, the story behind every tear. They see not just what you're experiencing now, but also everything that led you to it. Your history, your memories, your intentions, all of it is part of the emotional signature they feel from you. From their perspective, your pain is not failure. It is devotion. It is sacred. It is the soul's honest expression of attachment, longing, and love. They do not wish it away. They do not recoil from it. Instead, they witness it with a grace that most of us can only dream of. They feel the vibration of your sadness, but they process it through compassion. Where you might collapse under the weight of it, they hold it in spacious understanding. Where you feel chaos, they see harmony. Where you experience heartbreak, they recognize love trying to find its way back to center. This is why souls do not feel pain in the same way, not because they are far from you, but because they are closer to truth. They no longer view grief as something to be avoided. They see it as a powerful transformation, one that draws you toward deeper healing, and even toward them. They do not suffer when you cry, they do not ache in response to your sorrow, but they do feel the ripple of your love, and they respond with presence. Think of it like this: if your emotion is a song, they are the listener, but they are not hearing dissonance, they are hearing devotion. If your sadness is a vibration, they are the field that absorbs it, holds it, and reflects back peace. This is why, in your darkest moments, you might suddenly feel a wave of calm, as if someone invisible has touched your shoulder or wrapped you in warmth without a source. That is not your imagination, that is the soul, responding to your call. They want you to heal, not because your pain burdens them, but because your healing releases you, and in doing so, brings you even closer. The more you begin to remember your love without drowning in the loss, the more clearly their vibration can reach you. They are not saddened by your tears, they are moved by the love behind them, and it is that love, more than anything, that creates a bridge between your world and theirs. Your loved one is not stuck in sorrow. They are not looking down at you, wishing they could take your pain away like someone who still lives within the limits of a body. They are beyond that now. They dwell in understanding, they dwell in peace, but that peace doesn't isolate them from your struggle. It allows them to remain near it without judgment. They can be with you in the pain without becoming part of the suffering. That is the gift of their new perspective. They don't need you to hide your grief. They don't need you to be strong for them. They only need you to remember that pain is not the enemy, disconnection is. And the truth is, you're not disconnected. Even if your mind tells you they're gone, your soul still feels the echo of their presence. Your tears may feel like the last threads holding you to them, but in truth, they are reminders of a bond that has never been broken. So let your emotions move. Let them rise and fall. Let them speak what your heart cannot put into words. And know, deeply, that they are not watching your sorrow with sadness. They are feeling your love with reverence. They are receiving your vibration, like a message sent across dimensions. And they are answering in the only way they now can, through presence, peace, and a love that cannot fade. They understand you now better than ever, not through words, not through the body, but through the quiet language of spirit, through energy, through love. And that understanding is endless, just like the connection you share, just like them. There's something sacred about the moment a tear falls. You may not notice it as it slips down your cheek, but in the world of spirit, it is seen not as weakness, not as despair, but as a radiant expression of love in its most vulnerable form. Tears, in this realm, are not merely water escaping the eyes, they are luminous carriers of energy, encoded with emotion, memory, and intention. In the spiritual world, they shimmer with light, like droplets of starlight being released from the soul. You may think of tears as private, something you hide or wipe away quickly so no one sees you breaking, but in truth, you're not breaking at all, you're opening. You're allowing something raw and unspoken to rise from deep within you. That release, that surrender, creates a shift. Not just within your body, but within the invisible energetic field that connects all living beings, and even those who no longer walk beside you physically. In that space beyond form, your tears become more than expressions of sadness. They become messages, beacons, echoes of love carried across dimensions. When someone you love passes from this world, a part of you aches in a place too deep for words, and sometimes the only language that ache can speak is tears. But what you may not realize is that those tears do not go unnoticed. Souls who have crossed over don't see in the way we do. They perceive through vibration, through light, through the frequency of feeling. Your sorrow, your longing, your remembrance, all of it becomes energy, and your tears carry that energy like lanterns in the dark. Each tear holds a different frequency, depending on what emotion fuels it. A tear of helplessness vibrates differently than a tear of gratitude. A tear shed in despair carries another tone than one shed in awe of the love that still lives within you. The soul of your loved one feels the difference. They are drawn not by your pain, but by the light inside your pain, the truth behind the sorrow. When your tears are born from love, from remembrance, from the honoring of their soul's journey, those tears nourish. They become a gift, not a burden. In spirit, nothing is hidden. Everything is felt in its purest form. There are no masks, no false pretenses. When you cry from your heart, your soul shines. Your vulnerability is not weakness, it is clarity, it is truth. And that truth creates ripples that can be seen and felt in the spiritual dimensions as clearly as you might see sunlight reflecting on water. The more authentic your emotion, the stronger the vibrational signal it sends. It's not about dramatic displays, it's about sincerity. A single silent tear, released in deep reflection, can speak more loudly than 1,000 spoken words. Imagine your grief as music, a frequency composed of longing, remembrance, and the ache of separation, but also of devotion, of meaning, of the depth of the bond you shared. That music plays in the unseen world, and it draws your loved one's soul closer. Not because they are summoned, but because they recognize the melody. It is theirs as much as it is yours. They come not out of obligation, but out of love, to witness, to surround, to be present, in the moment you remember them. There's an ancient truth known in many mystical traditions that emotion is the language of the soul. In the afterlife, where time dissolves and form becomes fluid, emotion speaks louder than thought. It is immediate. It is felt across realms. Your tears become part of that language. A prayer, a song, a signal. When shed consciously from a space of love, reverence, and release, they become healing, not just for you, but for the one you mourn. Many people ask if crying holds back the soul that has crossed over. The answer is more nuanced. It's not the tears themselves, but the energy behind them. Tears shed in love are empowering. They remind the departed that they mattered, that their life was sacred, that they left an imprint so strong it is still felt beyond the veil. These tears uplift, they affirm, they bring comfort, even across dimensions. But tears that come from prolonged resistance, from clinging too tightly to what was, or from the belief that the bond is broken, those tears create a different current. Not because they are wrong, but because they come from a place of disconnection. They carry a heavier vibration, not evil or bad, but dense, slow, wrapped in the illusion that love has ended. And that illusion, though understandable, clouds the channel. It doesn't harm the soul, but it can dull the clarity of the bond. It can create fog where there could be light. That's why healing is not about forgetting. It's about transforming, about allowing your grief to evolve into something sacred, something that feeds both your journey and theirs. When you cry, try asking yourself, where is this tear coming from? Am I crying because I miss them, or because I believe I've lost them? Am I crying in despair, or am I honoring their memory? Your awareness changes everything. When your tears are released from a place of connection, even amid pain, they become sacred fuel, spiritual nourishment that reaches them like waves of warmth. There are moments when you cry and suddenly feel peace. A wave of calm washes over you, even for just a few seconds. In those moments, you are not alone. That peace isn't coming from within your own mind. It is a response, a presence, a loving echo. The soul you're grieving has drawn near, not to stop your crying, but to wrap itself around the space you've opened with your vulnerability. They come close, not out of duty, but because your love calls them like music in the dark. And they arrive gently, silently, without fanfare, but fully there. This is the unseen truth behind your tears, that each one is seen, that each one is felt, not as sadness to be fixed, but as an offering of love that continues to flow even beyond death. You may never fully understand how your emotions are translated in the spiritual world, but you can trust that they matter, that they carry light, that they become bridges. And even when you cry alone, even when the house is quiet and you whisper their name into the silence, you are not unheard. There is no such thing as a solitary tear when it is shed in love. Each one glows. Each one speaks. Each one touches the heart of the one who has left, and gently reminds them, I remember you. I still love you. I always will. What if I told you that every time your heart breaks wide open, a doorway opens with it? Grief, when it is honest, raw, and unfiltered, carries a vibration that reaches farther than you realize. You might think you're crying into an empty room, whispering to the darkness with no one on the other side. But what if those tears, that aching in your chest, and that desperate longing in your soul, don't vanish into the air? What if, instead, they send a message not with words, but with energy so pure that it calls across dimensions? There is something sacred about grief that refuses to be contained. When you allow it to move through you, when you do not resist its pull or silence its voice, something powerful begins to happen. The veil between this world and the next does not stay as thick as we think. In moments of true mourning, it softens, it becomes porous, and through that subtle opening, something reaches back. Imagine for a moment that someone is sitting in their room, clutching a photograph of the one they lost. The room is silent, but their heart is screaming. A single tear slides down their cheek, and they whisper, I miss you. I don't know how to do this without you. And just as they say it, a familiar scent fills the room, something gentle, something impossible to explain, like the perfume that person used to wear, or the warmth of a memory made physical. There's no logical reason for it, nothing tangible to point to, but it's there, and they feel it, they feel them. This is not imagination, this is resonance. In another place, someone lies in bed, wide awake at 3 a.m., lost in the waves of longing. Their eyes are closed, but the weight on their chest isn't sleep, it's grief. They haven't dreamed in weeks. But that night, without expecting it, they find themselves in a vivid dreamscape, standing in a sunlit field, facing the one they thought they'd never see again. They don't speak, yet everything is understood. There's a warmth, a stillness, a transmission of peace, and when they wake, the pain hasn't disappeared, but something inside has softened. This isn't coincidence, this is communion. When grief is felt fully, with no resistance, it doesn't trap you, it opens you. It dissolves the illusion of separation that this world has conditioned you to believe in, and in that dissolution, the veil thins. The boundaries that divide here from there, body from spirit, memory from presence, they blur. The intensity of your emotion sends out a frequency that acts like a flare in the energetic field. It tells the spirit world that your heart is calling out, and in response, the heart that still loves you, the one that's no longer bound by time or space, moves toward that signal. You may not always recognize these visitations for what they are. Sometimes they come as sensations, a sudden warmth in the air when the room should be cold, a soft brush across your arm when no one is near. Sometimes they arrive through synchronicity, a song on the radio with lyrics that match your thoughts, a phrase you hear from a stranger that echoes something only you and they would know. These aren't random. They are responses. They are the soul's way of saying, I'm here, I felt that, I felt you. It's not that spirits only show up when you're grieving. It's that grief makes you more receptive. Grief strips away the noise. It breaks open the layers of protection, ego, and distraction that usually keep your perception bound to the material world. And in that vulnerability, you become more attuned to subtle energies. You begin to feel the presence that has always been near, but previously blocked by the weight of your own defenses. The rawness of mourning doesn't just express pain, it invites connection. This is why, during funerals or memorials, many people report feeling a sudden shift, as if something sacred is happening just beyond the edge of visibility. The air feels different, time slows. It's not just memory that stirs people to emotion, it's something else, something present. The intensity of shared grief among loved ones amplifies the frequency, and that amplification is often enough to create a moment of overlap between worlds. You don't have to be spiritual to experience this. Even those who claim no belief in an afterlife often find themselves sensing something that logic cannot explain. They feel watched in the most comforting way. They feel seen, and for a fleeting moment, they feel less alone. These moments pass quickly, but they leave a lasting imprint. It's not because they imagined it, it's because something real touched them. Your pain is not a burden to the spirit world. It is not something to be hidden or managed quickly. It is a conversation. It is a language that transcends form. The more open you are in your expression of grief, the more clearly your energy speaks. That doesn't mean you need to suffer endlessly or dramatize your pain. It simply means to be real with your emotion, to allow it space. When you cry without shame, when you speak to them as if they still hear you, when you allow yourself to feel without judgment, the message becomes clear, and the response, though subtle, becomes undeniable. You may feel it as calm when there should be chaos. You may hear their voice in your heart, even if you can't explain how. You may suddenly find peace in a moment that had been tearing you apart. These are the signs. This is the reply. It's not always dramatic or overwhelming. Most often, it's quiet, like a feather falling on your skin, soft but unmistakable. This is what grief can become when you allow it, not just pain, but a portal. Not just longing, but a line of communication. You're not reaching into darkness, you're reaching into light that responds to you in kind. The veil between life and what lies beyond isn't made of stone. It's made of perception. And in moments of honest emotion, when your guard drops and your soul speaks, that veil becomes thin enough for love to pass through. You don't need to chase signs. You don't need to beg for proof. All you need to do is feel, honestly and fully. That is the message. That is the ripple. And that is how they find you again. Grief is natural. It is the soul's way of honoring love that has outgrown form, of acknowledging the depth of connection that refuses to be silenced by death. But not all grief brings healing. Some grief, left unresolved, becomes something else entirely. It hardens, it sinks. It begins to tether not only you, but the one who has crossed over. There is a kind of sorrow that doesn't open the heart, it closes it. That doesn't uplift, it traps. And though the pain that fuels it may be deeply human, its impact stretches beyond this world. When someone you love dies, your entire being reacts. There's shock, disbelief, the mind struggling to accept something the heart refuses to. You may revisit memories again and again, trying to preserve what was, to hold it together as if your remembering could reverse the finality. This is all part of the early process. It is how love navigates the absence. But there comes a point when remembrance quietly becomes something else, clinging. And clinging doesn't heal, it binds, not just to your pain, but to theirs. Your loved one, though free from the body, is not free from connection. Love doesn't evaporate after death, it becomes even more perceptible. It becomes the channel through which energy flows between realms. But when that energy becomes dense, heavy with guilt, with refusal to let go, with desperate longing that borders on obsession, it can begin to create tension in the space between you. Not because you are doing something wrong, not because grief is unwelcome, but because the spirit world responds not just to love, but to the clarity of love. When sorrow becomes resistance, the clarity dims. Imagine love as a stream of light that continues to flow from you to them. In the early stages of loss, it may be cloudy with grief, and that is understood. But over time, if that stream becomes thick with resentment, denial, or a refusal to move forward, it begins to create an energetic bind. What was once a river becomes a chain. These cords, invisible yet real, can wrap around both the soul in spirit and the heart, still in human form. They do not bind in the physical sense, they bind through emotion, through the frequencies of unprocessed sorrow that linger long after the body has been laid to rest. Your loved one, now in a state of expanded awareness, does not suffer as humans suffer. They are not pulled into your grief in the same way you feel it, but they do sense your energy, they feel your longing. And while they hold you in compassion, they are also navigating their own journey, their return to source, their movement toward healing and evolution on the other side. When the energy from this realm becomes tangled in need, in desperation, in the refusal to release what once was, it creates drag. Like an anchor tied to a kite, the soul may still rise, but the weight delays the lift. There's a misconception that to let go means to forget, that if you stop crying, or stop speaking their name every day, you're betraying the memory. But that isn't true. Remembrance is not attachment. One is sacred, the other can become a spiritual burden. When you remember someone from a place of love, when you smile at their photo, or feel their presence in the rustling leaves, or honor their life through your own, you are creating clear, open pathways for connection. But when you refuse to let life move forward, when you insist that everything must remain frozen in the moment of their passing, when you speak their name only through tears and never through joy, you are no longer remembering. You are holding on to what was, not allowing what is to be. Energetic chords are not punishments. They are simply the natural result of energy in motion. Every strong emotion creates a line of connection. When you continue to send emotional energy towards someone who has crossed over, especially strong, unresolved emotions, those chords are sustained. They can either nourish or they can entangle. If the emotions are balanced, rooted in love and peace, the chords are luminous, serving as bridges between realms. But if they are rooted in fear, in guilt, in obsessive mourning, they become tight and heavy. Some souls, especially those who were deeply attached to their families or partners in life, feel a sense of duty to return when that emotional call is made. They draw near to soothe, to comfort. But when the same energy continues day after day, year after year, with no resolution, no peace, no lightening of the emotional weight, the soul may feel pulled between worlds. They wish to help you, but their presence may keep you locked in the past, and your energy may keep them orbiting when they are meant to ascend. This is not said to create fear or guilt, it is said to bring awareness, because the greatest gift you can give someone who has crossed over is peace, not silence, not forgetting, but peace. To speak their name with love instead of agony. To light a candle in their memory, not because you feel lost without them, but because you are honoring the light they still are. To cry when you must, but also to laugh to live, because your living does not push them away. It frees them. It tells them, I still love you, and I'm going to keep living, not because I don't miss you, but because I know you would want me to. In truth, they never needed your pain to know they mattered. They already know. What they long for, more than anything, is your wholeness, your light, your freedom. When you begin to heal, when your grief transforms into something sacred and spacious, they are not forgotten, they are elevated. Your peace lifts them, your joy gives them release. The emotional weight loosens, the cords dissolve or change shape. The connection remains, but it no longer binds, it blesses. This is the shift, the sacred transformation from sorrow that stings to sorrow that softens, from grief that clings to grief that carries. Your tears, when shed in conscious love, become offerings. But when the tears drown your days, when the past becomes more real than the present, and you begin to build your life around loss, that is when the pain becomes an anchor. Letting go does not mean severing the connection. It means untangling it. It means allowing both you and your loved one to continue on your paths, still connected, but no longer tied down by unhealed wounds. It means trusting that love does not need to be mourned, to be preserved. It only needs to be remembered with grace. You may not know how to begin. That's okay. Start small. Begin by speaking to them not through your pain, but through your heart. Tell them you love them. Tell them you are learning how to release the weight but keep the bond. Create a ritual. Light a candle, not in mourning but in celebration of their soul. Honor their journey and yours. Let them know it's okay to move on, not because you don't care, but because you care deeply enough to let love evolve. And in time, you'll notice the shift. The memories will hurt less. The ache will soften. Their presence will feel lighter, not heavier. The connection will remain only now. It will be clear. It will be luminous. It will be free. What if I told you that if they could speak to you right now, their voice would not carry sadness, it would carry love? Not the kind of love that weeps with you in grief, but the kind that surrounds you even as you break, the kind that gently lifts your spirit when you think you can't go on. It's natural to imagine that if they were to speak again, their words would be filled with sorrow or apology or a desperate attempt to explain their absence. But the truth is far more profound. If you could hear them, really hear them, It wouldn't be regret that flows through their voice. It would be peace. It would be clarity. It would be freedom from the very pain you carry in your chest. If they could sit across from you, even just for a moment, they wouldn't waste time trying to explain what happened or why. They would take your hands, look into your eyes and say, "I see your pain, but I'm not far. I am not gone." Because they never really left. They only stepped into a different kind of existence, one that cannot be measured by clocks or touched by hands, but can absolutely be felt. And in that dimension, in that state of expanded awareness, they have not missed a single beat of your grieving heart. You may think they're gone because you can't see them anymore. But seeing isn't always knowing. They are closer now than ever before, no longer confined to space or location. You are thinking about them because they are near. Their energy surrounds you, not hovering above you in the clouds, but moving around you, within you, responding to your thoughts and emotions, as if they were standing beside you. If they could speak, they would tell you they've heard every word you whispered into the silence, every question, every cry, every why, and they would tell you that no sound of your heart has gone unnoticed. You imagine that your pain would hurt them, that if they could see your suffering, they would feel burdened by it. But from where they are, they don't view pain as we do. They see the love beneath it. They feel the devotion wrapped inside every tear you've shed. And even as they long to comfort you, they are not tethered to sorrow. Instead, they are wrapped in compassion so vast that it meets your grief with understanding, not sadness. What they want most is not for you to stay in that place of longing, but for you to remember who you are and why you're still here. They would say, "Please don't stop living because I died. I know your heart feels fractured, but the love that we built together is not buried. It's alive in you. It was never meant to end with me." They don't want your life to become a monument to their absence. They don't want you waiting to join them, waiting to feel whole again, waiting for life to begin once more. Because, from their side, they see what you cannot, that every breath you still take is a miracle, that your journey isn't over yet. They would remind you that they don't live only in memory. They live in the continuation of your life, in the stories you share, in the way you speak their name with reverence instead of despair, in the way you choose to love again even if it feels like betrayal at first. It's not, they would say. It's continuation. It's evolution. It's what love was always meant to do, expand, and if you could hear them clearly, you'd know this too. They are proud of you. Not because you've been strong every day, not because you've managed to smile through pain, but because even in the darkest hours, you haven't let go of love. Even in your most broken moments, you've held on to the thread that connects you. And that thread is unbreakable. They don't need you to forget them. They don't want that. But they want you to stop thinking of death as disconnection. They want you to stop searching for them in cemeteries or locked away in sorrow. They want you to look in the mirror and see them there in your smile, in your eyes, in the way your voice carries certain tones when you speak with emotion. They want you to find them in music, in nature, in the moments that bring you peace for no apparent reason. Those aren't coincidences. That's them, saying, "I'm here, I never left." And yes, if they could tell you more, they would say that your grief is not selfish. It is not something to rush through or shame yourself for. But they would also remind you that it is not meant to become your identity. They would say, "Feel the sadness, but do not become it. Carry the love, not the weight. I want you to be free, not because you must move on from me, but because moving forward is how you carry me best." They do not want you to suffer in silence, nor drown in isolation. They want you to speak to them, not as someone who is gone, but as someone who walks beside you in another form. They hear you, every time. No ceremony is required, no perfect words, just your heart, just your presence. That is the language they now understand. If your soul could listen instead of your ears, you would hear them say, "Your tears don't separate us. They remind me of how deep our love runs. But don't let them stop you from living. Let them fall. Let them rise. But let them lead you back to life." They would tell you that love, in its purest form, does not cling, it transforms. And now, that's what they are, transformed. Not lost, not broken, not unreachable. They are love in its purest form, formless, endless, and absolutely intertwined with you. So when you feel like you're too tired to go on, remember, they don't need you to carry their memory like a burden. They want you to rise. They want you to live for both of you. Because your life is still a sacred unfolding. And every step you take forward does not take you further from them. It brings you closer to the reunion that love is always moving toward. They are not gone. They are not far. And they are waiting not for you to stop crying, not for you to let go, but for you to start living again. There are moments when something stirs, and you can't quite explain why. A sudden chill in a warm room, a flicker of light with no electrical cause, a song playing on the radio that feels like a message. You pause, and for a second, your heart knows, but your mind brushes it away. You tell yourself it's coincidence, wishful thinking, imagination, but what if it isn't? What if the very things you dismiss are the whispers of someone reaching across the veil, trying to let you know they're still here? After the body has been laid to rest, the soul does not vanish. It continues, aware, present, loving. And although they no longer speak in the language of this world, they are not silent. They communicate through energy, symbols, and resonance, not to haunt or disturb you, but to comfort, to remind you that love still lives, and that they are not far. In fact, they are closer than you think, waiting for you to notice the signs. You may not realize how often they try to reach you, not because they're desperate, but because they care, because they know how heavy this world can feel when someone you love is no longer physically beside you. They send subtle nudges, little moments of knowing in ways that bypass logic and speak directly to the heart. The flickering of lights is one of the most common. Energy is their medium, and light is one of the most responsive elements to subtle energetic shifts. When you notice a lamp dim without reason, or a bulb flash once before returning to normal, don't be so quick to brush it off. Sometimes it's them saying, "I'm near." Then there are the chills, the sudden goosebumps that arrive not with fear, but with a strange comfort. It may happen when you're thinking of them, or looking at their picture, or standing in the place where you once shared laughter. That wave of energy, that shiver down your spine, it is not random. In the spirit realm, temperature is often used as a language, not because they bring cold, but because your body responds to their presence in ways that feel like cold. A shift in air, a tremble in the space around you, that's the brushing of their soul against your energy field. Dreams are one of the most powerful doorways for connection. When you sleep, the walls of the mind soften, the logical, doubting part of you relaxes, and your soul becomes more receptive. In that space, communication becomes easier. Have you ever had a dream where they appeared not as a memory replaying, but as if they truly came to visit? Where you woke up feeling different, not shaken but calmed. Those dreams are real. They are not fragments of the past, they are contact. They may not always speak in those dreams. Sometimes they just look at you. Sometimes they smile, or hold your hand, or simply exist beside you. The message is the same. I'm still with you. But it's not always through dreams or chills or lights. Sometimes it's synchronicity, those strange coincidences that seem too perfect to be chance. You think of them, and their name appears in a book. You say their favorite phrase, and someone echoes it moments later. You smell their perfume in an empty room. You see their birth date on a receipt, or hear their favorite song in the quiet corner of a store. These are not accidents. These are orchestrated alignments, subtle nudges from the unseen that say, "Notice me." And when you do notice, when you pause and feel the warmth behind the strangeness, your heart recognizes what your mind cannot explain. That recognition, that inner knowing, is not imagination. It is truth without logic. It is awareness beyond proof. The more you acknowledge these signs, the more they grow. It's not that they weren't happening before. It's that your attention opens the channel. Your belief sharpens your inner senses, making you more sensitive to the gentle ways in which they speak. Your loved one may also send animals as messengers, birds that land near your window and stay longer than usual, butterflies that appear in moments of deep emotion, dragonflies circling your path when your heart is heavy. Animals are more receptive to spiritual presence, they don't question or doubt, they feel. And sometimes, they serve as vessels, carriers of energy that bring peace, joy, or a moment of clarity when you most need it. It's also important to pay attention to your body. Your own body becomes a receiver, a sudden warmth in your chest, a tingling in your hands, tears that come not from sadness but from a sense of presence. These are signs too. The body is intuitive when the mind is quiet. It picks up on the frequency of spirit, often before the brain has caught up. You may feel like you're not alone, even when no one is there. You may sense a presence, gentle and familiar, standing behind you. These experiences are real. They don't have to be dramatic to be divine. They won't always send signs on command. You can ask for them, but spirit doesn't operate like a switch. Their messages come when your energy aligns with theirs, when your heart is open and your mind is quiet enough to receive. Desperation can cloud the frequency, but calm, expectancy, soft invitation that opens the door. Try this. The next time you feel overwhelmed with missing them, take a breath, close your eyes, and speak to them silently. Not with pleading, but with presence. Say their name in your heart. Ask for a sign, but then let go. Don't chase it. Let it come in its own time. And when it does, in whatever form, honor it, even if it seems small, even if your mind tries to dismiss it. Because what matters isn't whether the world believes it's real. What matters is that you feel it is. These signs are their way of saying they're not gone. That love did not end with the last breath. That their soul, which once shared your world, is still aware of yours, still connected, still reaching across the quiet to let you know, I see you, I hear you, I love you, I'm still with you. You are not imagining the flicker, or the chill, or the whisper that moves through you when their memory arises like a wave. Those are not illusions, they are reminders. Love does not stay silent, and neither do the ones who have loved you. Their voice now speaks in the language of presence, of synchronicity, of vibration. And if you listen, truly listen, you will hear them. You already have. What if I told you that every time you speak to them in your heart, they hear you? You may not see a flicker of light or hear a whisper from the air, but the message you send when spoken with truth, with emotion, with love, moves through the layers of this world into theirs. It's easy to assume that communication ends with physical death, that because they're no longer here to respond with words or gestures, your voice no longer reaches them. But that's a misunderstanding rooted in the limitations of physicality, not the truth of the soul. In reality, every soul that has crossed over remains attuned to the energy of those they love. And your energy, your focused emotion, your intention, that is the bridge that allows communication to flow. They don't need a phone line or a letter written on paper, but they do need something: your presence, your heart, your willingness to feel instead of just think. That's the first key. When you create a space, not just in your environment but in your consciousness, you open a channel between dimensions. And it doesn't need to be dramatic or mystical. It can begin with something as simple as sitting quietly and letting your heart speak what your mouth cannot. Imagine this: you light a candle in the evening. You sit with a photograph, or maybe just a memory. You breathe, slowly and intentionally, and you let your mind soften. You let the grief come, if it wants to. You let the love rise. And then, in the quiet, you speak not aloud if you don't want to, but inwardly, from the depth of your spirit. That space becomes sacred the moment your intention enters it. That vibration, the mix of love, longing, truth, and remembrance becomes a message. And from where they are, that message is not only heard, it is felt. It's not about the words, it's the frequency behind them. The more emotion you allow into the message, pure, unfiltered emotion, the clearer the signal becomes. And that doesn't mean you need to cry every time you reach out. It simply means the message must be honest, real, intentional. You can't fake this kind of communication. The veil that separates this world from the next is sensitive. It doesn't open to force or performance. It opens to sincerity. And when your emotional energy aligns with remembrance, with love, and especially with stillness, your message becomes unmistakable in the realm of spirit. Some find their clearest communication through ritual. a quiet walk in nature where they speak aloud to the wind, a journal they write in as if they're writing letters to the one who has passed, a candle they light each night with a prayer spoken from the heart. These aren't just acts of comfort, they're acts of resonance. Repetition and intention create an energetic signature, a kind of beacon that your loved one begins to recognize as a space of connection. They don't require the ritual, but you might, because the ritual tells your being, this is where I speak, and this is when I listen. Others connect best in dreams. Not every dream is a visitation, but some are. You'll know them because they feel different, not chaotic or symbolic, but calm and clear. A visitation dream doesn't fade the way normal dreams do. It lingers in your bones. It brings peace instead of confusion. And often, those dreams come after you've made space before bed, in meditation, in writing, or even just in a whispered invitation. If you're near, visit me tonight. I'm listening. The truth is, they're always near, but it's you who must quiet the noise enough to notice. Your mind, brilliant as it is, often acts as a filter that blocks the subtle frequencies of spirit. That's why the best conversations don't happen in the middle of distraction or chaos. They happen in the stillness, in the slow, sacred moments when you finally pause, open your chest, and feel. Intentional emotion is the transmitter. If you speak to them without presence, your message becomes diluted not because they can't hear it, but because your own energy is scattered. But when you sit with presence, when you tune into your memory of them and speak with your full heart, even if that heart is broken, the message cuts through. They don't hear with ears, they hear with essence, and your essence speaks clearest when it's aligned with truth. You don't need to be perfect in your practice. There is no right way to reach out. There is only your way. Some feel closest when they play a song that reminds them of a shared moment. Others, when they cook a dish they used to enjoy together. Some sit under the stars and feel the connection in the vastness of the night sky. What matters is not the method, it's the meaning. If it reminds you of love, if it opens your heart and centers your soul, it becomes a bridge. And if you think, but what if they don't answer? What if I don't feel anything? Know this, the message is always received, always. Just because the reply doesn't come in the form you expect doesn't mean it hasn't been spoken back to you. Sometimes the answer is the sudden calm after a storm of tears. Sometimes it's the warmth you feel in your chest out of nowhere. Sometimes it's the shift in your own thoughts, a sudden sense of clarity or encouragement that didn't feel like it came from you. The veil isn't a wall, it's a curtain, thin enough for presence to pass through, thick enough that most people forget it's there. But your emotion, when focused, when intentional, parts that curtain. It doesn't always open dramatically. Sometimes it flutters, sometimes it whispers, but when you show up with truth, love, and a willingness to feel, they show up too. They are listening. Not just when you cry, but when you remember, when you laugh at an old story, when you close your eyes and say their name, when you place your hand over your heart and say, I miss you, but I still carry you here. Every one of those moments is a transmission, a spark of energy that moves through time and space and lands in their awareness like a touch to the soul. So if you've been waiting to hear them, stop waiting and speak. If you've been longing for a sign, become the sender instead of only the seeker. Light the candle, write the letter, walk the trail, close your eyes, and remember, create the space, feel the emotion, and speak not as if they're gone, but as if they are just behind the veil, listening with every ounce of the love they never stopped giving, because they are. Grief is not something to be escaped. It's not a flaw in your strength or a shadow on your spirit. It's love with nowhere to go, love searching for a new shape to take. When someone you love leaves this world, the hole they leave behind feels vast, unfillable. At first, all you can do is survive it. You wake up with the ache, you fall asleep with the echo. Their absence walks beside you in everything, in the empty chair, the quiet phone, the memory that arises at the most unexpected moment. But in time, if you let it, that grief begins to change. It doesn't disappear, it transforms, and what once felt like mourning can become something sacred, something devotional. There's a shift that begins deep inside you, when you realize you can carry them forward, not just through sorrow, but through honor. That you are not only the one who lost them, you are the one who now has the chance to live in a way that reflects their light. Every soul leaves behind not only memories, but a legacy of love, of lessons, of essence. And when you choose to carry that forward consciously, grief becomes fuel, pain becomes purpose. Their memory becomes a living presence, not just a photograph on the shelf. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of, why did they leave? You begin to ask, how can I continue what they started? You look at their life, what they stood for, what they believed in, how they loved, and you begin to realize that those things didn't end when they passed. You are the living vessel of their love now, and in the choices you make, in the way you treat others, in the compassion you show, in the courage you summon, they are there, moving through you, speaking through you, loving through you. This is not forgetting, this is remembering with purpose. Grief will still visit, some days will be heavier than others. But even on those days, you can choose to meet the sorrow not with resistance, but with reverence. You can turn it into something devotional, a quiet morning walk where you speak to them in your heart. A letter written not from longing, but from gratitude. A promise to live a little more boldly, because you know life is brief and beautiful. These are sacred acts. They turn mourning into movement. They shift the energy of grief from stagnation to service. You may choose to create something in their name, a garden, a book, a tradition. Or you may simply choose to live more fully, to be more present, to laugh more freely. That, too, is a tribute. Because if they loved you deeply, they never wanted your life to stop. They never wanted their passing to become a prison. They wanted you to live not in spite of their death, but in celebration of their soul. And here's the part most don't realize. Your healing helps them, too. When you begin to shift your grief into devotion, when you find peace, not because you've forgotten them, but because you've integrated them, something changes on their side of the veil. The energy becomes lighter. Their journey becomes more expansive, because the love between you is a shared current. When you grow, they grow. When you release pain and choose peace, it creates a ripple that reaches them. Your freedom opens space for their own evolution. In the spirit world, growth continues, learning continues, expansion continues, but it's not disconnected from you. The bond remains. And when you begin to embody the wisdom their life gave you, when you turn your sorrow into service, your memory into movement, it nourishes them, it uplifts them. It sends them the message, I'm okay, I still carry you, and I'm becoming more because of what you gave me. There is no right way to do this. Devotion doesn't require perfection. It asks only for sincerity. Some days you'll feel strong, others you'll feel the weight of the loss all over again. That's normal. What matters is not how fast you heal, but how intentionally you walk. That every step you take toward peace is a step taken together. You are not leaving them behind. You are walking forward with their presence folded into yours. Even your tears, when shed in this light, become sacred. They are not just for the absence. They are for the love, for the fact that you were blessed to have them at all. And even though they are no longer here in form, your love was not wasted. It is not stuck in time. It continues to grow, because love is not bound by the rules of the physical. It is a living force. It evolves with you. And when you pour it into your life, into how you love others, how you care for yourself, how you move through the world, that love becomes their legacy. There may come a day when you find yourself smiling at a memory without pain, when their name brings warmth instead of sorrow, when their favorite song plays and you dance instead of cry. That day may seem impossible now, but it's not. And when it comes, it doesn't mean you've let go. It means you've let love become something larger. You've allowed it to grow beyond the story of loss and into a story of becoming. Let your life be the continuation of theirs. Let your healing be your offering. Let your peace be your prayer. And every time you choose joy, every time you choose presence, every time you choose to speak their name not in pain but in love, know that somewhere beyond the veil, their soul feels it, and they are smiling, and they are growing with you. What if I told you that death is not the opposite of life, it's the mirror that reveals what life truly is? When someone you love crosses that invisible threshold, something inside you shifts forever. At first, it feels like devastation, like a door slammed shut with no way to reopen it. You grieve the absence. You long for their voice, their touch, their presence. But beneath the sorrow, something deeper stirs, a quiet realization that refuses to be silenced. If love still lingers, if you can still feel them, if your thoughts and emotions somehow reach them, then death cannot be what we've been taught. It cannot be an ending. It must be something else, something far more profound. You see, if they can perceive your grief, if your tears move through the veil and touch something on the other side, then consciousness does not die. It continues, it expands. And that realization changes everything, because the moment you accept that death isn't destruction, but transition, you begin to see life not as a fragile accident, but as a divine unfolding. You begin to understand that you were never just a body. You are a soul, eternal, luminous, undying, wearing this physical form like a garment for a season, and they were too, still are. This is what death reveals when you look closely. Not despair, but design. Not cruelty, but continuity. The pain of loss doesn't come from the soul. It comes from the illusion that we are separate, that life ends, that love disappears when the body returns to dust. But what if that's not true? What if death is not a closing chapter, but a turning page? And what if everything you feel after they leave, the sensations, the dreams, the strange synchronicities, is not imagination, but evidence? You've been conditioned to view life through the lens of beginning and end, birth and death, hello and goodbye. But the soul knows no such boundaries. The soul is not born, it emerges. It does not die, it returns. The body may fall away, like autumn leaves from a tree, but the essence, the consciousness, the truth of who we are, remains. Death, in its rawest truth, does not destroy identity, it frees it. It releases the soul from density, from limitation, from the illusion of separation that this world imposes. If they can see your pain, if they can feel your love even after they've departed, then what does that say about the very nature of life? It says that life is not confined to what you can touch or see. It says that awareness continues after breath, that love outlives the heartbeat, that relationship is not broken by death, only redefined, and more than anything, it says this: you are not alone. You never were, and you never will be. Think about it. If they are still conscious, still aware, still capable of perceiving your energy, then their journey did not end. It simply changed dimensions. And so, when you sit with your grief, you are not mourning a disappearance, you are adjusting to a shift in form. Their essence has not vanished, it has simply stepped beyond the veil. You haven't lost them, you've lost access in the way you were used to. But they are still here, just beyond the edge of your perception, alive in a reality too vast for the five senses to fully register. This realization doesn't make the pain disappear, but it transforms it. It shifts the foundation of your sorrow, because now you're not grieving a void, you're grieving a presence that you can no longer touch. And that distinction matters, because a void cannot respond, but a presence can, and often does. Every chill on your skin when you're alone, every whisper in the back of your mind that comes with comfort, every coincidence too perfect to dismiss, these are not empty moments, they are echoes, touches, signs. Life is trying to show you that it never really ended. What death reveals is that we've misunderstood the soul. We've been taught that consciousness lives inside the brain, that it's created by neurons and vanishes when the body dies. But the truth is closer to this. The brain is a radio, not the music. It tunes into your consciousness, but it does not create it. And when the radio breaks, the music doesn't end. It keeps playing, somewhere beyond what we can hear unless we learn to listen differently. That's what grief teaches you, if you let it. How to listen with your soul, how to perceive with the heart instead of the eyes. How to remember that everything you are and everything they were is part of something so much bigger, so much more infinite than you were ever taught to believe. And in that remembering, life begins to make more sense, not less. You begin to see that the greatest truths were always hidden in plain sight. The way a sunset feels like a goodbye and a promise at the same time. The way a baby looks into your eyes with ancient knowing. The way your dreams sometimes speak in voices that no longer walk the earth. These aren't accidents, they're invitations, reminders, glimpses into the truth behind the veil. Death doesn't want to be feared, it wants to be understood. Because it's not the destroyer we imagine, it's the revealer. It shows us what's eternal by stripping away what's temporary. It shows us what matters by removing everything that doesn't. And what always remains, through every goodbye, is love. That love you feel, that ache in your chest when you remember them, that's not just nostalgia, that's presence, that's continuity, that's the living proof that the bond you shared still exists. If love ended with death, you wouldn't still feel it now, but you do. And that feeling, that longing, is the soul recognizing truth, even when the mind doubts. So let death teach you what life really is. Not just a string of moments between birth and loss, but a sacred journey of remembering who you truly are. You are not here by accident. You are not bound by time, and neither are they. Life is bigger, wider, deeper, and the soul, your soul, is eternal. They are not gone, they are not lost, they have returned. And one day, so will you, not to an end, but to a home you've always carried inside. They are not gone, not truly. You may not see them in the way you used to. You may not hear their voice echoing through the rooms of your home. Their laughter may no longer ring through the spaces you once shared, and their physical presence may feel impossibly far away. But don't let your eyes fool you. Don't let the silence deceive you. Just because someone's no longer visible in form doesn't mean they have vanished. The bond you built with them, the love you gave, the memories you wove together, all of that still exists. And so do they. You are not imagining it when you feel them nearby, when their name seems to surface from nowhere, when a familiar scent brushes past you like a whisper, when your chest tightens with emotion that has no clear cause. You think you're breaking down, but what's actually happening is something far more sacred. You're remembering. On a level deeper than thought, your soul is recognizing the presence of someone who never left you. You are sensing them not through the five senses, but through the heart, which is, and has always been, the bridge between realms. They see you, not with eyes, but with the knowing that transcends vision. They feel your pain, not as suffering they must carry, but as the echo of a love that still flows. They don't flinch from your grief, they hold space for it. They do not shy away from your longing, they reach toward it. And in the moments when your heart feels stretched too thin, when the ache becomes unbearable, that is often when they are closest, not hovering above in some distant light, but right beside you, quiet, still, listening. When you cry, they come closer, not because your tears summon them like a spell, but because love draws love. Sorrow expressed with honesty becomes an invitation. They do not come to fix your pain, they come to sit with you in it. They come because they care, because even without a body, they still carry the deepest imprint of who they were and who they still are. And love, once awakened, does not fade into nothing. It finds new ways to be expressed. It becomes presence. It becomes silence filled with meaning. It becomes the warm breeze that kisses your face just when you need comfort the most. You might have wondered if they know how much you still love them, if they feel it when you light a candle in their name, or when you speak to them in the quiet moments of your day. They do. Every word whispered in love, every thought sent in remembrance, every heartbeat that holds their name, it reaches them. Not like a letter through the post, but like a beam of light across the veil. And even if you cannot feel their response every time, trust that the energy exchange is real. Love always finds its way home. You may think of them as being somewhere far away, in some celestial realm you can't access. But the truth is, the distance between this world and the next is thinner than you believe. It's not a wall, It's a veil, and love, in its purest form, moves through that veil effortlessly. Every time you think of them with tenderness instead of torment, with presence instead of pain, the veil softens, the channel clears. They feel it, and you, whether you realize it or not, do too. They don't expect you to be happy all the time. They don't expect you to forget, or to move on, in the way people sometimes suggest. They only hope that you'll continue living, that you'll keep choosing life, because through your life, their love continues. Every time you express kindness, every time you show up for someone else's pain, every time you grow from the heartbreak and choose to love again, you are allowing their legacy to ripple forward. You are becoming the proof that love does not die. And when you wonder if they still love you, know this: that love hasn't faded for a moment. In fact, it has deepened. In this new state of awareness, they see you more clearly than ever. Without judgment, without expectation, only with love. They remember every laugh, every tear, every moment when your hearts met in silent understanding. They remember who you were to them, who you still are, and in ways you may never fully understand in this life, they continue to send you that love. Not once, not occasionally, always. There may be moments when you feel a peace that doesn't seem to match your current emotion, or when the chaos of grief is suddenly interrupted by stillness. These are not accidents, they are moments of contact. Your soul brushing against theirs, your energies aligning, even for just a breath. Those moments aren't meant to be rare. As you heal, as you release the weight, but keep the love, those moments grow. They become more frequent, more vivid, not because they weren't always there, but because your ability to receive them becomes clearer. One day, perhaps far from now, you'll look back on your journey through grief and see something you can't yet see today. You'll see how they never left. How they appeared in the dreams that stayed with you for days. How their favorite song showed up at just the right moment. How your intuition whispered things you had no way of knowing. How, in your quietest moments, you somehow felt held. That was them. Not in the way they once stood beside you, but in the way only a soul can. Close, infinite, true. This is the truth that grief often tries to hide. They are still with you. Not in memory alone, but in real presence. And they always will be. The love you shared is the thread that keeps weaving across time, across form, across the illusion of death. It cannot be broken, it cannot be lost. You are still connected, and always will be. So the next time you feel that ache rising again, the weight in your chest, or the tear that falls without warning, remember this: they're closer than you think, closer than breath, closer than thought. They are walking with you, quietly, gently, in every step you take, not behind you, not above you, but beside you. Still loving you, still holding you, still yours.